first real exposure to thinking about objects and the making of objects probably didn't occur until I was in college. In between the end of my freshman year and the beginning of my summer job that summer, I worked with a boatman out at where the Yale crew rode out of, and got to see somebody who was extremely talented in woodworking. It was really my first exposure of sort of doing something other than, say, sixth grade shop. And I think it was really transformative, even though I didn't realize it at that time. I'd been interested in history. That was my major at that point. Didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but I just was following my own instincts, the things that I liked, and ended up taking this course on decorative arts and realizing that objects were incredible historical documents, that they told stories, that there were narratives embedded within these objects. So there was a way in which sort of my historical interests and realizing that I wasn't interested in military history or political history, but it was sort of like people I was interested in. So this as sort of a new kind of social history that objects came to play into that. And that's really what I'm engaged with more than anything else, is this idea of not object-centered kind of scholarship where you just sort of zero down in on one object and sort of glorify, talk about its aesthetic content, but how do you talk about object-driven inquiry? What does your approach to the object start? Can you unwrap it to start thinking about what does it say about different moments in time? What does it tell us about the way people lived, the way they communicated with one another? That's, to me, what really drives me looking at objects. I know so many people who become object-centered kinds of people, and they get sort of caught up in a time period, a place, and don't necessarily grow beyond that. And what I find with object-driven kinds of interests is I continue to move in so many different directions. One of the things I feel very fortunate about teaching at Yale is what got me excited in the field to begin with, and that is that objects aren't simply in vitrines up on platforms in museums, but right from the get-go, I had sections for some of my classes in which Charles Montgomery would hand silver tankards around a room, and you'd be able to sort of talk about these objects, handle them, get to know them, physically, and these objects are so much about the way we relate to them in our body. How does one hold on to something? How do you pass it along? What's the front? What's the back? What's the inside? What's the outside? What's the heft of something? And to me, what I've tried to do is inculcate that kind of perspective as I'm teaching, as I'm passing along my knowledge, which is, after all, a cumulative knowledge. We're not born with this. We acquire it over time, and one sees and experiences more and more, so it becomes this kind of layering of knowledge. I'm always struck by people asking me, what are your favorite objects, or what do you collect? Because they automatically assume they're sort of only aesthetics matter. And what I find is I'm drawn to objects, as I said before, something about the stories they tell, but also what they reveal to us. So I look at objects oftentimes as puzzles that need to be revealed, and in doing that, one has to go beyond the mere exterior. You have to sort of be able to place it, but to me, I almost start from the inside out. So I start looking, say, at a piece of furniture, I'm going to look at the wood on the inside, the secondary wood, the wood that's hidden, and thinking about what kind of wood it is, how it's been prepared, how it's been treated, and then work out to the outside and sort of see what's the difference between the inside story, the exterior presentation. So to me, objects aren't just sort of static elements. They actually have a complex story in terms of their making, and then they have a complex story over their use or abuse over time. And that's why I don't get tired doing what I do. My name is Ned Cooke, and I'm the Charles Montgomery Professor in the Department of History of Art at Yale University.